While the budget is the most immediate concern, talk of tax reform, we know our investor audience really cares about that. It is still heating up. President Trump even going so far as to suggest this, which you may not love, raising the U.S. gasoline tax to pay for dilapidated roads, bridges, and tunnels. The gasoline tax hasn't been touched since 1993. It's at about 18 cents per gallon. Could this be a crucial piece in pushing tax reform over the finish line? We bring in Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist. Let me take a stab at this one, Grover. You don't like the idea of hiking the gasoline tax?
Correct. This is not only not part of tax reform, it's opposed to tax reform.
Okay, but go out on a limb here. Why
Sure.
are you against this, especially considering that for those of us who use the roads, and last I checked, that's just about everybody, even if you don't have a car, you're traveling somewhere, unless you're homebound. Isn't it better to hike the gasoline tax when oil prices and gasoline prices are as low as they are? We're not as low as we were a year ago, but at $2.37 a gallon for the national average of regular, it would be less painful now.
But more painful if prices go up. Look, there's no reason to raise the gasoline tax. Politicians don't spend money on roads because they raise money promising to put it on roads. They spend it somewhere else.
Okay, what if there was a designation or it was forcefully earmarked that any revenue that came from that tax has to be used for shovel-ready roads and bridge projects?
Two things. One, they already have that. It's the gas tax. It's supposed to go to transportation, but that's so loose that it goes into big city subways, which has nothing to do with your roads working. So they take maybe 18–20% of your tax dollars that are promised to go to highways, and it goes somewhere else. You don't need to raise taxes. Just say no more looting the gas tax that's supposed to go to roads.
Why did President Trump float it as saying that this would be a good way to at least offset some of the cost of a $1 trillion infrastructure project?
The White House made an immediate clarification that he was being polite to a bunch of people who tossed the idea out, and he says, we're looking at that, okay? I'm looking at it. I think it stinks, but I'm looking at it too, okay? But get rid of the diversion out of roads. Two, the Davis-Bacon Act raises the cost of every road and bridge by 20 to 30%. It's a law put in the 1930s specifically to keep African Americans out of white unionized jobs.
Right, but it requires a minimum floor for workers' wages. And
a minimum floor, it's the
projects.
union. It's the union floor. It's to keep non-union people out of work. It was originally designed to be racist. It still is. Get rid of it. Now you've got 20 to 30% more money for roads and bridges. We can build lots more bridges, lots more roads. The White House and the Capitol Hill have more money than they need for roads. They take about 20% of it and take it away from roads somewhere else, and about 20 to 30% of it into Davis-Bacon. Plus, when you pay for roads, what are you paying for? All those EPA studies to find out whether if you add an extra lane to a 4-lane highway, whether it's going to irritate the caribou or the rhinoceroses in the neighborhood.
Wait a minute. There's a pothole right near me in New Jersey I would love to see filled. So anybody listening who has the power to put some of that gas tax over there, we'll take it in New Jersey. Grover, we've had a bit of time to digest the tax reform plan floated by Steven Mnuchin and Gary Cohn. What's your gut reaction to that? It seemed to be a lot of nice promises that we would all love to see, but with hefty price tags.
Well, taking the corporate rate from 35 down to 15 and the business tax in subchapter S corporations also down to 15 is, quote, very expensive to the government. It's very good for citizens. It's dynamic for growth. That alone will take you from 2% anemic Barack Obama French growth to 4% Ronald Reagan growth.
Can I just quickly use the word dynamic, and I think that's a play on dynamic scoring, as they call it, which anticipates or thinks, or you build something on what you think the policy will inspire as far as behavior is concerned. And Steven Mnuchin says, we don't need to pay for it. Growth from this tax cut will pay for it. Is that really something that we can depend on?
Well, we can depend on it a lot better than the CBO scores, which have historically been wrong about how much growth you get from lower taxes. We had a tax cut in 2003. Remember the second Bush tax cut?
Yeah, it sunsetted after 10 years.
at the end of 4 years, revenue was higher than was anticipated if you'd never cut taxes at all. So it actually created more growth and more than paid for itself. I know our friends on the left says taxes don't pay, tax cuts never pay for themselves. The last tax cut we had in America paid for itself.
Well, some conservatives believe that it will balloon the deficit, but more to discuss. Grover, will you come back?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform president, does not like any hiking of the gasoline tax.
Nope.